Thank you. My sisters, it is my signal honor today to introduce to you someone I suspect you know in one respect only. Ms. Marcia Hines of Barbados. She's flown here to attend and to address us. Am I too close? Ms. Hines, can you hear me? Okay, good, thank you. Ms. Hines hails from Barbados and has been selected as a keynote speaker for the 2018 Women's Armed Convention for good reason. Ms. Hines' academic story is not yet complete. She began with an associate's degree in mass communications. She double majored in print and broadcast media. While she was doing her master's degree at Cave Hill, she got involved in a gender studies program there and was one of the first to embark on a study to measure attitudes to sexual harassment. It'd be very interesting to see the results of that, particularly if it were done in St. Vincent. I can't help myself. Hines is a teacher by profession, but she's also worked a lot in media. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Brass Tacks program in Barbados, sort of like E.G. Lynch used to do for us here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She's been a moderator with that program and has worked with numerous media houses in Barbados. She's currently pursuing a PhD, and soon we'll be referring to her as Dr. Hines, which she doesn't care to have, okay. Well, you're ruining my segue. I was going to say, you may all be familiar, however, with another Dr. Hines, Dr. Christina Hines, with whom Ms. Hines did a very simple but very profound thing that has contributed significantly to the invitation we've extended to her today. Ms. Hines is a part-time lecturer at the Arthur Lewis Institute of Economic Studies at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus in Trinidad and Tobago. She's also a mother of 4 and informs us that she likes to sew and hike. I'm sure Zita will be very happy with the latter part of that. But let's tell a tale. Some months ago, many of us became familiar with a video that went viral very quickly. It was a video of 3 women armed with placards, psychedelic colors of placards, standing up in a lecture at the Cave Hill campus of the University of the West Indies. The person addressing that lecture, the speaker, was Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And this was his first public appearance outside of St. Vincent and the Grenadines since the issues surrounding Yugi Farrell's arrest and her commitment to the mental health center became front page news in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Dr. Gonsalves famously called for recognition of Camilo Gonsalves' dignified silence. And silence has been used as a weapon throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines as we deal with issues concerning women's rights. So 3 women get up in a lecture and very simply pierce that silence. It wasn't 300 people, it was 3 women. And they lampooned the very notion of dignified silence. For there's no dignity in silence of that kind. Everyone is accountable. In that gesture, you could even look at the video, you'll see the faces of the others in attendance. They were shocked, some were horrified, some were pleased, but they were largely silent. In this demonstration, these 3 women showed us certain key elements of a successful movement. The first is that it needn't be tremendous in size. Small acts can be profound in impact. The second is that bravery is a requirement. We don't have to politely request reform. We can stand and demand it. Another is that these women were propelled by an ideology that, yes, they're feminists. They seek equity for women, equity and equality for women in our societies. But they also did something that is not done enough in our region. They interfered in what was happening in another Caribbean country. The last time we saw that in this region was the Kittitian standoff in Parliament. Democracy was under attack in St. Kitts Nevis, and no one in the Caribbean was saying anything. There was silence until the New Democratic Party stood up and said, "We hear you, and we stand with you." That's the true meaning behind movements like Federation and CARICOM, OECS. We talk about CSME. That's the true meaning behind it. We are our sisters' keepers. So join me today in welcoming a woman I consider to be an august keynote speaker for this event at this time in this country. And let us also show her our gratitude for standing up for us. Ladies and gentlemen, our keynote speaker, Ms. Marsha Hines.
Protocol having been recognized and established. Thank you. I guess it brought tears to my eyes because when we did it, it really wasn't all of that. It was just us trying to support a young lady that we thought needed our support. So to hear it said like that, I guess it really makes you connect with the bigness of it all. Thank you. This is a humbling experience, as you can see. And I start by expressing thanks and gratitude to the organizers, those named and unnamed. To Ziza and Kay, to you, the audience, thanks to you for allowing me to share this day and space with you. The 44th presidency of the United States of America is, and I suspect will remain, one of the most inspirational and seminal in the politics of the 21st century. I want us to recognize that the 44th presidency was very much a male and female black political partnership. They took over the leadership of America at a time when its philosophical and financial underpinnings were teetering. The Obamas had to rally those already invested and involved in the American political process. More significantly, though, they had to also rally all those who never dared to get involved, who felt like for one reason or the next that politics was not their thing. The NDP must do the same thing in this island space in 2020. And now, as in the historical record of these islands, male and female partnerships are needed. As a part of his rallying cry, Obama made it clear that, and I quote, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek." I think Obama's rallying call serves us well as we reflect on the theme of this gathering and the topic at hand. I have attended many exercises like this one in which we are currently engaged over time. Mostly older men in well-worn suits have rambled around the topic, trying to connect enough academic and/or professional grounding, philosophy, and quotes to come out sounding bright. Let me state up front, I have not come across the water on a surprisingly early liat to do that. I was asked a question. I've come to answer it. Second to that, as a proud daughter of the Caribbean soil, I have come to check in and fellowship with my Vincentian and Grenadinian sisters. Because from my vantage across the water, things I hear concern me. Things I see give me consternation. I feel like my sisters here may be under siege by the abuses and misuses of governmental power. And if the National Democratic Party can rescue my fellow Caribbean sisters in this island in any way, then you have my pledged support and assistance. I will walk and I will talk with the NDP if that is needed. And it would especially be my extreme pleasure to do that in the name of Zita Barnwell, in whichever constituency she's given to caretake. I would do it for Kay too, who is already serving the NDP and St. Vincent and the Grenadines with distinction. That is a good entree to the third thing I've come to do. I have come to tell you that I've met a gem of yours. Oftentimes it is hard for a person to be queen in their own land. That is because familiarity can breed contempt. The closer we are to people, the more we see flaws or shortcomings rather than positives. Petty jealousies can take hold. And in that knowledge, I have come to call a queen a queen. I want to thank Senator Zeitz for being who she is. I want to tell her that the ancestral mothers are proud of her and they watch over her. I further commit my support to her, both in her quest for vice presidency of this party and as a member of Parliament, speaking in the future tense. I also affirm to the NDP that Kay, in her service of this party and her country, is becoming known as one of the political strong women in the region. For that, the NDP and this women's arm both get to be proud. The NDP, this women's arm, must be invested in change for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Because based on my vantage across the water, I think St. Vincent and the Grenadines could benefit from political change and renewal. The NDP must ready itself. Personal agendas must bear no place in decisions. The team moving forward must be a mix of the best men and women available. And of course, I'm saying this to you as my own party is involved in the final 4 or 5 days before an election campaign in Barbados. So I very much am in the mood and in the spirit, so forgive me if I am overstepping. I think that the hills of St. Vincent are alive with the seed of change. And if they are, then change should the people have. Without further delay, though, to the question and the answer. The question I was asked is there a role specific to women enforcing political change? And I think my answer might be surprising to most of you gathered here, because my answer is no. Women have no specific role in political change. Let us always be reflective enough and conscious enough to recognize patriarchy, to recognize the system of male domination that starts based on the premise that woman is different from, and that in her difference, she is less fit or able to perform in political spaces. Let us guard against feeling we need to make justification for wanting to be equally included in spaces such as political parties and government. We must guard how we embrace the notion of difference, even when, especially when, it comes to us clothed in fine garments and bearing flowers, with the invitation to take up specific or special tasks. Because if we accept that there is a specific role to women just because we are women in the political process, then we could be providing support for the current separation in political labor that we now have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and certainly in Barbados, where I was born. I do not accept that there is a specific role for women to play in political change. I just believe that women have the same and equal role as men in political change. And that is because we are both human, and we are both capable to do the exact same things in the political sphere as men. So there is no specific role for us, just a role. Indeed, I believe that if we understand that we have a role, and that our role is often purposely blocked by men like Ralph Gonsalves, then women must become, should become, far more mobilized, far more militant and political as a precursor and facilitative mechanism for political change. For too long, Caribbean women have been cloaked by a glass ceiling in our experience of life. It is an interesting misnomer in Caribbean women's lives. I say this because in the Black race group, the group that comprises the majority of Caribbean women, women have been outside forever. We were never only inside the house. We have always worked alongside men. From plantation days, women toiled alongside men. We were beaten like men. Women operated outside and in perceived male spaces. We have been political entities forever. Woman was always a powerful force in the Caribbean, in not specific roles, but all roles. We were never only home, inside, or removed from politics. Let us not allow our history to be rewritten for the narrow purpose of a few misogynists or women haters. We must call them out, Ralph. Because of the heavy investment in patriarchy, the historical and social reality in the Caribbean has conveniently reinforced division between man and woman roles in the establishment of many of the institutions of Caribbean civilization, including the political party. There has somehow been a clear and reinforced division between the public space and the private space, with political parties being constructed as very public spaces, and thus the purview of men. There is some lever that stops women from being fully integrated in the political process. When we talk about political change, then, what needs adjustment is the belief that women are only good for the same tasks they perform in the home, care work. But changing that is not the specific role of women. It should be the work of a Caribbean civilization. A few decades late, but better late than never. What women must be busy doing is not persuading anybody that they have a specific role to play in politics, but they should be busy playing the role we already have. There are two manifestations of human experience, man and woman, with no fundamental difference in the two with regard to political involvement. I think the specific role women have is to take their place in political change and to check their own assumptions about what is politics and how politics should work. Here is where it's difficult to remain scripted, because this is where self-examination must begin. Politics must be personal, I believe, and it must be experienced in its gendered way. My own politics has embraced and will continue to embrace the woman's agenda. I have stood and will stand for hard causes. I refuse to be boxed in by respectability. And I want to say to us today, all the women in this room, wherever we are, whether we're perceived as being hierarchy in the party, or whether we're perceived as members of the party, wherever we find ourselves, we must be willing to have a frank discussion about our experience of womanhood. One of the things that drew me to attention the most about the Yogi Farrell issue is that we had a particular commentator in Barbados who kept driving home the fact that this woman was mad. Everything that had happened didn't matter because she was mad. I picked up the story at that point without even understanding what had gone before. And the reason why that hit home to me is because I myself, as a middle-class Barbadian woman, had been exposed to abuse. And one of the mechanisms used by the perpetrator, who happened to be my father, was that he persuaded everybody not to listen to what I was saying because I was mad. At the point in time when I was looking for a job in Barbados, I had to subject myself to the psychiatric hospital in Barbados to have an evaluation done. Because my father, who had had the power of sitting in high governmental office in Barbados, had persuaded everybody that I was mad. I found out last year that my father has stole some shares that my grandmother left for me. And he is still trying to persuade people in Barbados, even as I fight for my inheritance, that I am mad. The woman with all this education and all these positions, myself, is now again being looked at as possibly mad. That is my politics. That is my dedication. And that can never and will never change. So when it came time to stand up, I did. Simply because I knew of the experience and I could identify with it. And I think that more of us as female politicians have to be willing to step into that uncomfortable space. Where we run the risk of being scrutinized because we tell our own stories and we let people understand that we are not only fighting political causes, but that we are fighting very personal and familiar causes. And this work is not easy work. And it has to start with a personal frankness. We have to ask ourselves how we feel about fellow women, how we feel about sisterhood, and where we have gotten the images and the concepts of sisterhood or sister fighting from. Because in a lot of cases, we have to recognize that the perceptions that we have about our own selves, about our own places, about our own roles, even about our own breasts and vagina have been given to us by men. In our intimate decisions, in the way we live our lives, we have to stand up as pillars of example. Do not tell me that you are going to break down the patriarchy and call out Ralph on his foolishness if you yourself have come to the political space to see who you could sleep with in the party for a little forward. We have a decision to make. Do we want to sleep with the men or do we want to shake them up? Because I humbly I humbly suggest that we cannot do both at the same time. Politics must be institutional. Women must be willing to support women. Women must be willing to force inclusion. Stop settling for second-tier places. Women must be and should be representative in the executive of the political party. Women should be and should be supported in seeking candidacy to be in the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so my rallying cry today is, rally yourselves, NDP, ready yourselves. So that Vincentians and Grenadinians can see why to invest in change. Your leader here today started a prosecution against the current government based on the woman question. But prudent political strategy demands that your own house is in order. Your historical footprint is strong with respect to the groundbreaking strides that you have made. Put yourself in the best position to defend it. Your executive could do with a few more good women. We have to ask ourselves, what of this women's arm? What is the culture of this women's arm? Because I will tell you, I have operated in the women's arm in my current political party at home for the better part of the last 5 years or so. And I will also tell you that has been one of the most uncomfortable political spaces I have ever been in. When they're not bickering about how short my dress is, about how I've worn the wrong thing, about how my child always at some meeting keeping noise, they're just fighting me down on a policy position when I feel like really they should be supporting it. When they're not supporting young people and encouraging young women to step forward, they're talking about who and who man they feel I come to take away or to join the long line at the back of being one of his mistresses to be disrespectful to his wife. Let us look at the culture of our women's arms. Because we have to first make ourselves strong. We have to first create an inclusive space, even before we ask the wider party to include us. Politics is about networking and power. Call out your regional connections. It can no longer be women who don't want women most. For the handful of us who get the still too rare opportunity to serve our countries at the national level, we are demanded to do something different for a different result. So I want the National Democratic Party and this Women's League, even as you move towards 2020, to go around this Caribbean region and call out the female politicians to see who stands with you. It is an important exercise because if you understand the power of politics, that is what politics has to become for us as women. And now back to my script. So, ladies and gentlemen, as Obama said, we are our change, but that is not easy. It is an active voice, a lived experience. We as women cannot take our rightful places in politics and believe that we should not challenge the status quo. We have to forget the right time and the right place. We have to drive us. What has to drive us, is a different existence for our daughters. It is because I had the childhood that I had that I am adamant that my own daughter will not have it. That is my politics. And that is the only role I am willing to take on. We must refuse to cook and clean if we do not wish to in the political space, or if the men are not sharing equal burden. We must contest elections, not only for the secretary or public relations officer, but for the president, for the vice president, secretary, general secretary, and the perceived power positions. We must tell men that they cannot speak on our behalves. Our tongues are not broken, and when we speak, we must speak as women. It is okay to create a little noise, discomfort, confusion. It is okay to be a little emotional. And for goodness sake, let us not create it with ourselves, neither specifically as women, nor generally as members and supporters of the NDP. Let us ready ourselves. A part of being not the upholdment of the status quo just because, but the allowance for the best women and men to be chosen. We must ensure our support for each other, especially as women, is unapologetic and resolute. And above all, we must not become men to be in politics. We must be willing to become women in politics. For that is not a burdened or special thing. It is simply the way it should be. Whatever the future brings, your faith can see you through. Do not just sing it, live it. NDP, change for SVG.
Thank you, Ms. Hines, for a very inspirational and rousing talk. Now we'll have Ms. Luann Dover, who will give us a vote of thanks.